We're in the thick of one of the most exciting college football seasons in years, and the Heisman Trophy race is heating up. At the center of the conversation, Ashton Jeanty, Boise State's electrifying junior running back. With each passing week, this literal human highlight reel has been inching closer to bringing down records that have stood unchallenged for decades. But Jeanty's story isn't just about numbers. It's about grit, heart, and a relentless drive that's taken him from humble beginnings to national stardom. Ashton Jeanty's journey started in Jacksonville, Florida, but calling one place home was never a possibility. With his father's military career, the family was always on the move. From Virginia to Texas to Italy, Ashton lived out of suitcases and made friends wherever he landed. But one thing was constant: his love for sports. Like most kids, Jeanty didn't have it all figured out. Basketball was the first sport he fell in love with. He imagined himself on the hardwood floor as the next Allen Iverson or Nate Robinson, and dreamed of breaking ankles and sneaking past defenders. But life had other plans. As much as Ashton loved the game, his height worked against him. He was fast, competitive, and relentless. But the basketball court wasn't where he was destined to be. It wasn't until a family friend nudged him toward organized football that everything changed. Before then, football was just a backyard pastime, a game where he and his friends raced across lawns, juking and sprinting until the sun went down. But soon after that, Ashton found himself in a local rec league, and his talent quickly became evident. In one of his first games, he broke free for a 50-yard touchdown. His family erupted in celebration. That feeling, the rush of a play well executed, the sound of the crowd, all of it lit a fire in him. Football became more than a game. It became his calling. But just as Ashton was beginning to discover his love for football, life threw him a devastating curveball. His family had to move to Italy, a place where football wasn't even heard of. Naples, Italy. Beautiful views, incredible food, and absolutely no football. Italy is a country where soccer reigns supreme. Football fields were replaced by soccer pitches, and Jeanty felt like he had been thrown off the deep end. There were no competitive leagues for a budding running back. Opportunities to grow as a player were limited, and he didn't even have a team to play for in the 7th and 8th grades. But Ashton's relentless drive is what kept him going. With all odds stacked against him, Ashton still managed to make the best of a seemingly hopeless situation. His only opportunity was with the Naples Wildcats, a high school varsity team for military kids that competed against schools scattered across Europe. The games were few and far between, and the competition wasn't exactly fierce, but Ashton made the most of it. Every snap, every run, every touchdown. He treated it like it was the Super Bowl. Still, Ashton didn't feel like he was playing real football, and he probably wasn't wrong to think that way. He stayed with the team for only a season, but even then, there was no denying his talent. Coaches saw a raw athlete with a rare combination of size and speed, a kid who could run like a jet and hit like a truck. That potential was enough to catch the attention of Jeff Rayburn, head coach of Lone Star High School in Frisco, Texas, giving Ashton the chance to finally bring his raw talent back home. When the family returned to the country after 3 years, Ashton found himself in Frisco, home to one of the most competitive high school football scenes in the country. Texas high school football is no joke. It's where future stars are made, and Ashton was ready to prove himself. Or so he thought. At Lone Star, Ashton faced an uphill battle. The program was already stacked with talented players, and he wasn't coming in with a decorated football resume. His time in Italy hadn't prepared him for the speed, intensity, or complexity of the game in Texas. Coaches appreciated his raw potential, but decided to start him on defense. For 2 years, he played as an outside linebacker and safety, learning the intricacies of the game from the other side of the ball. It was a humbling experience, but Ashton never let the lack of offensive reps discourage him. He bided his time and knew his moment would come. That moment finally arrived during his senior year. When Ashton was given the opportunity to play running back, he didn't just rise to the occasion, he dominated it. In 12 games, he ran for 1,843 yards, caught 41 passes for 810 yards, and scored a staggering 41 touchdowns. His versatility was unmatched. Whether running between the tackles, catching passes out of the backfield, or making plays on special teams, Ashton seemed unstoppable. He was more than just a running back. He was the entire offense's secret weapon. Coaches, teammates, and even opponents couldn't believe what they were seeing. This wasn't a player who had grown up under Friday Night Lights. This was someone who had made the most of every unconventional step along the way. But as his high school career was coming to an end, the future for the star running back wasn't looking all too good. 1,843 yards, 41 touchdowns, and yet no big-time recruiters knocking on his door. What was Ashton Jeanty missing? Despite his jaw-dropping senior season, Ashton's recruitment journey wasn't what you'd expect for a player with his stats. He got offers from Kansas, Cal Berkeley, and a late nudge from TCU, but none of them showed the kind of interest he'd hoped for. But Boise State was different. The school saw something in Jeanty that others couldn't. Known for finding diamonds in the rough, the program recognized Ashton's potential as more than just a running back. They saw his versatility, his work ethic, and his hunger to prove himself. But still, Boise wasn't the obvious choice for Ashton. A Florida boy headed to Idaho to play in a smaller conference? It wasn't a place where he had really pictured himself. But Boise State's legacy of producing NFL-caliber running backs gave him just a tiny bit of hope. So he gave it a shot. And when Ashton visited the campus, the atmosphere sealed the deal. Fans were already buzzing about his highlight reels, the tailgates, the homecoming energy, and the warmth of the community. It all made him feel like he belonged. Ashton could feel that he was wanted there in a way he wasn't anywhere else. With his decision made, Ashton arrived at Boise State full of optimism, but nothing could have prepared him for what was to come. When Ashton Jeanty first arrived in Boise, it was a world away from everything he'd known. Just weeks out of high school, he found himself in a place where the weather was colder, the stakes were higher, and he was once again starting from scratch. A Florida boy who had spent years under the Texas sun wasn't prepared for Idaho winters. Snow blanketed the ground almost daily, and the chill cut through every layer of clothing. It was a whole new way of life. He didn't have any family nearby, no close friends to lean on, and no familiar faces in the locker room. All he had was his work ethic and a deep desire to prove himself. It would have been easy to feel overwhelmed for any normal person. But all of Ashton's life had prepared him for these tough situations. He spent those early weeks grinding, learning the playbook, and adjusting to a program with a rich tradition of excellence. Boise State was a program with high expectations, especially for running backs. Sharing the backfield with veteran George Holani, a player already established as the team's go-to weapon, Ashton knew his role would be secondary. Holani, who had carried the Broncos' ground game for years, could have viewed the young freshman as competition. But instead, he became a mentor to Jeanty and took him under his wing. The two running backs shared a bond, both on and off the field, that you don't really see at this level of competition. The lessons he learned from Holani weren't just about how to play at the college level. He learned how to carry himself, how to lead by example, and how to be a positive presence for his teammates. But on the field, Ashton's freshman season started quietly. Boise State's run-heavy offense was built around Holani, and Ashton's opportunities were limited. But when his number was called, he made sure to leave an impression. His breakout came against San Diego State, where he notched his first collegiate touchdown and racked up 82 yards on 12 carries. It was a glimpse of what he was capable of: quick bursts through the line, sharp cuts, and the kind of versatility that kept defenses guessing. That game was just the beginning. Over the next month, Ashton began to find his rhythm, putting together a string of performances that solidified his place in the rotation. In 4 games, he posted 323 yards and 5 touchdowns, complementing Holani's dominance with his own explosive plays. Together, they formed one of the most dynamic backfields in the Mountain West, a 1-2 punch that gave defenses nightmares. While Holani shouldered most of the spotlight, Ashton thrived in his supporting role. Every carry, every touchdown was a step forward, a chance to prove that he belonged. By the time the Broncos reached the Frisco Bowl, Ashton was no longer just the freshman learning the ropes. He was a key contributor. The bowl game against North Texas was his standout performance. With 188 total yards and a touchdown, Ashton was the spark that powered Boise State to victory. He showed the full scope of his abilities, from breaking tackles to making plays in open space. It was a performance that hinted at what was to come. By the end of the season, Ashton had totaled 976 yards and 7 touchdowns. For a true freshman, those numbers were impressive. For a player sharing the backfield with a future NFL running back, they were remarkable. Boise State had a new star in the making, and Ashton Jeanty was just getting started. Ashton Jeanty's sophomore season was where everything seemed to click. After a strong freshman campaign, it was time for him to take his game to the next level, and he didn't disappoint. With a new offensive coordinator in place, Boise State revamped their strategy, focusing on utilizing Jeanty's unique skill set. No longer just a running back, Ashton became a true offensive weapon, lining up in the backfield, running routes and catching passes like a seasoned receiver. He was showing the world everything he could do. The season didn't start off as planned for Boise State. An 0-2 start cast a shadow over the program, raising doubts about whether the Broncos could contend for the Mountain West Championship. The team was in a tough spot. But even in those early struggles, Ashton showed glimpses of exactly what he was capable of. In the first 2 games alone, he racked up 159 rushing yards, a touchdown on the ground, and 206 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. As the season progressed, Ashton's dominance only grew. He was everywhere. Jet sweeps, screen passes, route running, and of course pounding the ball between the tackles. He wasn't just a running back anymore. He was an all-purpose threat. The Broncos may have struggled to maintain their usual standard of success, but Ashton was putting up numbers that seemed straight out of a video game. By mid-November, Boise State faced one of its most turbulent moments. With a 4-5 record and the team on the brink of their worst season since the late 1990s, head coach Andy Avalos was relieved of his duties. The announcement could have derailed the Broncos, but Ashton saw it as an opportunity to lead. In the 2 games following Avalos's departure, Ashton delivered. With the team's postseason hopes hanging in the balance, he stepped up in spectacular fashion, totaling 329 yards and 3 touchdowns over the final 2 regular season games. Boise State, powered by Ashton's heroics, clawed their way to the Mountain West Championship game. In the championship game, Ashton put on another clinic. Rushing for 153 yards and 2 touchdowns, he carried the Broncos to victory, capping off one of the most dramatic turnarounds in recent program history and earning them an appearance in the LA Bowl against UCLA Bruins. By season's end, Ashton had amassed 1,916 all-purpose yards and 19 touchdowns playing only 12 games. Those numbers ranked him 3rd in the nation, earned him first-team All-American honors, and got him named the Mountain West Offensive Player of the Year. His sophomore year proved he was a star, and heading into his junior season, expectations for Jeanty were higher than ever. In his 3rd and likely final season with Boise State, Ashton Jeanty has wasted no time making history. From the very first snap of the 2024 season, he has been on a mission, and it's clear that no defense can stand in his way. His season began with a performance for the record books in an away game against Georgia Southern University, where Jeanty delivered the best performance of his career. In just 20 carries, Jeanty shredded the defense for 267 yards, breaking a Boise State single-game rushing record that had stood for 46 years. He also found the end zone 6 times, tying both the Paulson Stadium and Mountain West records for touchdowns in a single game. His performance was the best by any FBS rusher in Week 1, setting social media ablaze and catapulting him into early Heisman Trophy conversations. It was a stellar display of dominance, earning praise from head coach Spencer Danielson, who called Jeanty a generational talent. If anyone thought that game was a fluke, Jeanty silenced the doubters a week later. Facing the University of Oregon, one of the nation's top programs, Jeanty delivered another spectacular performance. He racked up 192 yards and 3 touchdowns, running through and around a defense filled with future NFL talent. Though the Broncos ultimately lost by a field goal in the game's final moments, Jeanty's efforts put Boise State firmly on the national radar. The team was no longer just a Mountain West powerhouse, they were a team that could hang with the best in the country. After a bye week, Boise State returned with a dominant win over Portland State. In a game that quickly turned into a blowout, Jeanty played only the first half, but still managed 127 rushing yards on just 11 carries. Remarkably, it was his lowest rushing total of the season, a testament to the incredible bar he had already set. 2 weeks later, the Broncos went up against an undefeated Washington State team. Jeanty again put in a clinical performance. He ran for 259 yards with 4 touchdowns, leading his team to a 45-24 win. He has shown he is the real deal throughout the rest of the season. His stats after the regular season are insane. He played about half of the season with a hyper-extended elbow and still racked up 2,288 rushing yards with 28 touchdowns and finished with a 7.3 average yards per carry. Not bad for a kid that learned how to play football in Italy. Whether it's been against top-tier opponents or conference rivals, Jeanty has shown up every week, delivering performances that have left fans and analysts in awe. With Jeanty leading the charge, the Broncos are not just chasing another conference championship, they're making a case as one of the best teams in the country. Ashton Jeanty's junior season has not only cemented his place in Boise State history, but has also propelled him into the national spotlight as one of college football's most exciting talents. With every game, Jeanty inches closer to achieving something extraordinary. With Boise State cementing a spot in the Mountain West championship game and potentially the college football playoff, Jeanty could have as many as 17 games to his name by season's end. This extended time on the field gives Jeanty a very realistic chance to chase one of the near-immortal records in college football. Barry Sanders' single-season rushing mark of 2,628 yards, set in 1988. Sanders' record has stood for decades as the gold standard of rushing excellence, achieved during an 11-game season that did not include postseason stats. Averaging nearly 190 yards per game, Jeanty's single-season stats did fall short of Sanders' remarkable 238.9-yard average, but with the potential for 14 to 17 games total, the record is still very much within reach. But it's not just the yardage record that Jeanty is chasing. Sanders also holds the NCAA single-season rushing touchdown record with 37, another benchmark that has stood untouched for more than 3 decades. Jeanty's ability to find the end zone has made this record equally plausible, especially with Boise State's postseason opportunities on the horizon. What makes this pursuit even more compelling is the context. Sanders set his records during his Heisman Trophy-winning season, and Jeanty finds himself on a similar trajectory. Running backs have struggled to claim college football's most prestigious award in recent years. The last to win it was Alabama's Derrick Henry in 2015. Jeanty has been making an extremely strong case for the Heisman this season, with his combination of explosive runs, record-breaking consistency, and ability to dominate against top competition. His stats speak for themselves, and there's almost nothing separating him from Colorado's Travis Hunter, his rival for the Heisman. Who will etch their name in college football history? Let us know your pick in the comments below. If you happen to watch this video after the pick is in, comment below if they got it right. Along with all of this, Jeanty was the unanimous mid-season All-American pick and is well on his way for being one of the top running back prospects for the 2025 NFL Draft. All of it just goes to show the incredible season he's having. Whether he breaks Sanders' records, wins the Heisman Trophy, or simply leaves his mark as one of the greatest running backs in college football history, this season has already been unforgettable. But influence extends far beyond the field, shaping his brand, inspiring fans, and leaving a lasting legacy from Boise to Naples. Ashton Jeanty's meteoric rise has made him one of the most talked-about names in college football, not just for his performances on the field, but for his impact off it. With his standout junior season putting him firmly in contention for the Heisman Trophy, Jeanty's NIL valuation has also reached staggering heights. In October 2024, he topped the list of highest-earning NIL athletes, surpassing stars like Dylan Raiola and Diego Pavia, with a valuation of $1.4 million. Jeanty has partnered with Hal Davis Jewelers, the Boise Hawks, and Campus Inc. NIL store, which launched an apparel collection celebrating his Deuce nickname. The line includes t-shirts, sweatshirts, and hoodies featuring unique graphics and phrases like, "just scored another touchdown." While his NIL success might have thrust him into the spotlight, for Jeanty, money has never been the goal. In an era where loyalty in college football is increasingly rare, Ashton Jeanty's unwavering commitment to Boise State is nothing short of extraordinary. The world of NIL deals and transfer portals has made it easy for players to chase bigger programs and bigger paydays. And Jeanty had those opportunities. Major programs that once overlooked him now came crawling to his door, flashing seven-figure deals and promises of stardom. But for Jeanty, those offers meant nothing. Boise had been there for Ashton from the start. It was the place that saw his potential when no one else did. The SEC, the Big Ten, and even big-name Texas programs had passed on him before, dismissing him as just another recruit. But the Broncos gave him the chance to prove them wrong, and Jeanty can never forget that. He turned down the money and the prestige of bigger schools because, as he put it, a legacy, an impact, lasts forever. Walking away from Boise would have meant walking away from everything he'd worked so hard to build, not just for himself, but for the city, the program, and the people who believed in him. Jeanty's impact on Boise extends far beyond the field. He's not just their star running back, he's an active pillar of the community. He recently invited Jacob Sayre, a 19-year-old double heart transplant and stroke survivor, to practice. He was moved by Sayre's resilience and had a long heart-to-heart with the 19-year-old. But he doesn't just love meeting his fans, he also wants to see them follow their dreams. Through his partnership with Boise State Athletics, he launched the Ashton Jeanty Endowed Scholarship for Football, ensuring future Broncos have the support they need to chase their dreams just as he did. But Boise isn't the only place where Ashton's impact has been felt. Naples still hasn't recovered from the one season that he stayed there. Though thousands of miles and years removed from those early days, his legacy still lives on. The Naples High School Wildcats, the team where Jeanty played as a freshman, recently celebrated their third straight championship. His number 2 jersey hangs proudly in the locker room. Even now, players emulate his iconic Michael Myers-like stance, drawing inspiration from the athlete who once stood where they stand today. Naples head coach Jim Davis often reflects on the impact Jeanty left behind. The players might not have known him personally, but they feel the weight of his story. The kid who took every challenge in stride, who carried himself with quiet confidence, and who never let circumstances define him. In Naples, as in Boise, Jeanty isn't just remembered for what he's done on the field, but for the inspiration he continues to provide. Jeanty's journey is a story of loyalty, resilience, and the power of believing in those who believe in you. He didn't leave Boise for the allure of the spotlight because Boise gave him something more valuable, a chance to build a legacy that will last long after he's gone. From the blue turf to the fields of Naples, Ashton Jeanty isn't just a football player. He's a symbol of everything great about the communities he's touched. And as Boise residents cheer him on, they know they're not just witnessing history, they're part of it.